Welcome back to Coding Chamber. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the next step of programming the function. Pretty much what a function is it's some repeatable bit of code, right? So, this is a very powerful thing in programming because it vastly narrows down what you need to do. Say write code, right? So we'd have this, so functions, for example, they have something in them, and they have some bit of code that they do something. Kind of getting stumbling over my own words, but they do something, right? So I would call a function and it would say perform. I'm trying to say it would damage a player, right? And so that might look like, in this odd programming language, say damage player. And then say the code in it, this is pseudocode, is just damage, say reduce the player's health by 1, right? And so that would be a function, a pseudo function. So that's pretty much what it does. It's something that you can call at any time in your program that you just write beforehand. So it's just some piece of code that maybe you need to call multiple times, or you need to say call multiple times in your program. So a good rule of thumb when you use functions is that if there's some piece of code that you're repeating lots of times that says 1 to 2, like lots of lines, or even one line, you're probably making a function because it's just going to simplify everything, right? So you don't have to keep writing this, okay, if an enemy attacks and he has 1, damage him. You could just simplify that to, say, a function that takes, say, a parameter, and a parameter is simply a bit of input you give the function to do something, right? So, say it's a parameter, how much do I need to damage the player by, and then it takes that much away from the player's health. So to make this concept more simple, I'm going to jump over to Python IDE, or the Python environment. To follow me along, you do not need the Python environment. I'm just using it to demonstrate these concepts. So already in here, we have just a bit of starting code. So for example, we have player health, and I've assigned it to 10. Just for example, that is not a valid variable name. That is, I prefer something called camel case, however I want to make my variables, though you'll more commonly say in Python something like that. It's not very important right now. If you don't know what camel case is, just go search it up on the internet. It's very probably widely talked about. So, and you might see in Python, it's really quite a simplistic language. There's not a lot of syntax, like in, say, something like Java right here, where you can see just a massive amount of just like semicolons and curly braces and things like that. I personally prefer something like Java just because it's highly versatile. It's not to say Python is not versatile, but I digress. So in this, say we just take player health, and this was not going to run. I take player health, say minus equal 1, and all that does, in case you're wondering, it's the same as just doing this. And you may feel very confused right now, but again, this is just the concept phase. The first 2 episodes, you could completely skip these and probably be fine. But just in case, I just want you to just show you this stuff, so when you do get to it, it's just as a conceptual, right? Because I think conceptualizing, learning syntax is not the same as actually conceptualizing programming concepts, and so that's what I want to do. So for example, this would do that, or I could do something like damage. So that's a parameter in this case, and I could subtract it by damage, right? And then I could call that function later in my program, right? So I could say damage player and say I want to damage them by 1, right? So what this would do is, we're going to talk through this program, which is, you may already know how it works, you may already be familiar with the programming languages, but I'm going to talk this through. So we have player health, and it's equal to 10. And in fact, in a minute, I forgot to talk about this in the first episode. I'm going to talk about data types, but later. I digress again. Next, we define the function, which is pretty much like defining a variable. We set it up. That's what this is like. Define damage player. We give it the parameter damage, which is just something that says, okay, when you call me, I need this bit of input so I can use it. And then it says player health is going to equal player health minus damage. This is much more easily put like this. And it means the same thing, but for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm going to do this just because I think it's less confusing. I'll probably phase over in a couple episodes though. So that is what a function is. It's a bit of repeatable code. And because I completely forgot to talk about this in the previous episode, I'm going to talk about data types. And so what a data type is, and this is a very big, scary word, but if you think about it, it's not that scary. It is a type of data. It's the different types of data you can store in a variable. So for example, if I have some variable like player health, and I make it equal to 10, that player health's data type would be an integer. And an integer is just a number, right? It's just a number, and in programming it has special concepts because believe it's an integer is 32 bits in this case. And that's a lot of things you may not know. Don't get scared. Pretty much that's the data type of this is though number. You can think of that way, right? So data type of player health is a number. You could also say that player name would equal, say, Roberto. Now that's a string, and what a string is simply a string of characters. I know you may be wondering, why are you putting these weird little those things? Why are you putting those in front of the string? That's just to tell the programming language, look, we're making a string. I believe in Python you can use single quotes. In other languages don't do that, because usually single quotes indicate a char, which is simply a single character. But I digress again. So there's lots of data types, but the two you really need to know, and two you'll probably be using a lot, at least in the beginning, are strings and integers. Or you can think of them as words and numbers. They are very ubiquitous. You're going to be using them in almost all of your programs. So in the next episode, I'm going to start actually entering the Python IDE. I'm going to walk you through how to download that. I'm going to walk you through how to get set up, and we're going to write our first program. Hello world. So thank you for watching. If you want, subscribe, and goodbye.